Today, we're exploring the psychology of wealth, why people choose security over freedom, the bridges to business, and the levels of investors.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful framework from Robert Kiyosaki. It's all about how money is really made. And honestly, this idea could completely flip how you see your career, your income, and your whole future. All right, let's just dive right in, because it's a wild journey. We're talking about Robert Kiyosaki and his wife, Kim. So get this, in 1985, they were homeless, like deeply in debt. 4 years later, millionaires. And by 1994, just 9 years after being at absolute rock bottom, they were totally financially free, never had to work another day in their lives. I mean, how on earth is that even possible?
Well, to really get the answer, we've got to go all the way back. We have to start at the absolute bottom, with a story that's, well, it's pretty shocking, and it's what sets the stage for this entire way of thinking about money.
I want you to just imagine this for a second. All your savings, gone. Credit cards, completely maxed out, and for weeks, your home is a beat-up brown Toyota with seats that recline. That was their reality. I mean, that was their life, until a friend finally figured out what was going on and offered them a room in her basement.
And you know, the one question they kept getting from friends and family was, why don't you just get a job? And you can see why people would ask that, right? I mean, both Robert and Kim had college degrees, they had great job skills, a solid work ethic. They could have walked into a safe, high-paying job, no problem.
But see, that's the thing. They weren't looking for job security. They were after something much bigger, financial freedom. They knew that a regular job, that steady paycheck, that was the definition of the rat race they were so desperate to escape. And they were willing to do anything to get out of it, even if it meant living right on the edge of a financial cliff.
Okay, so if it doesn't take a job, it doesn't take a fancy education, and it doesn't even take money to start, I mean, remember, these guys were in debt, then what does it take? What does it actually take to build that kind of wealth?
Well, according to Kiyosaki, it really boils down to just a few things. You need a dream, a whole lot of determination, and you have to be willing to learn and learn fast. But the most important piece of the puzzle, the real secret sauce, is knowing which quadrant you should be operating from to make your money.
And that brings us to this, the core concept, the Cashflow Quadrant. It's a really simple but brilliant way to see the 4 ways money is made in our economy. You've got E for employee, S for self-employed or small business, B for a big business owner, and I for investor.
Now here's what's so fascinating about this. It's not about what you do. Your profession doesn't lock you into one of these boxes. You could be doing the exact same kind of work, but operate out of any of the 4 quadrants. And believe me, the way you make your money and the results you get will be worlds apart.
Okay, let's use a doctor as a perfect example, right? So as an E, an employee, they could work for a big hospital. As an S, for self-employed, they could start their own private practice. See, now they own their job. As a B, a business owner, they might own a whole clinic or even a hospital and hire other doctors to work for them. And finally, as an I, an investor, they could be putting their money into the stock market or other businesses. See? Same profession, but 4 totally different ways of making a living.
So that begs the question, why was Kiyosaki so focused on the right side of this quadrant, the B and the I? Well, the answer comes from this really powerful real-life story about the 2 most important men in his life, his 2 dads.
So on one hand, you have his real dad, who he calls his poor dad. This was a very smart, highly educated guy who lived and worked on the left side of the quadrant. He had this belief that the love of money was evil, and he was always saying things that really just set him up for a life of financial struggle. Then, on the other hand, you have his rich dad, his best friend's father. He saw money completely differently. For him, it was a tool for freedom, a way to support life, not something that controls you.
And this huge difference in their mindset, it led to 2 totally different places. The crazy part is, you can see it all come to a head when both men hit the exact same age, 54.
So, his poor dad, he was a brilliant guy, the head of education for the entire state of Hawaii. He decides to run for lieutenant governor, and he loses. But because he went up against the establishment, he was basically blacklisted. Quietly, behind the scenes, they made sure he would never get another government job again.
So there he is, at age 54, his career gone. Poor dad is forced over into that S quadrant, trying to start one small business after another and just failing. He ends up having to depend on Social Security. Now, at that exact same age, rich dad, who had spent years systematically building businesses and investments on the B and I side, he was becoming richer than ever. His empire was just taking off. I mean, what a stark contrast, right? And it reveals the big lesson here. Which quadrant you choose to make your money in has huge, life-changing consequences for your future. It just proves it's not about how smart you are or even how hard you work. It's about having the right strategy.
And that's why Kiyosaki chose the B and I quadrants. He picked them for a few very specific, very powerful reasons. First, it's where you can build wealth way faster. Second, you can pay way less in taxes. And this is all legal stuff, incentives that are just built for business owners and investors. And finally, you get to build systems where your money is working for you 24/7 instead of the other way around.
So when you boil it all down, this entire idea leaves us with one really important question to ask ourselves. Just think about how you make your money right now. Are you on the left side of the quadrant, working for money? Or are you on the right side, building systems so that your money works for you? Because honestly, the answer to that one question, that's what's going to define your entire path to financial freedom.
Okay, let's be honest. We all say we want freedom, but why do we almost always choose security instead? It's a huge question, and it's at the very heart of Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow Quadrant. We're going to dig into that right now. So think of this as a puzzle we're going to solve together, right? Why do so many smart, hardworking people, maybe people you know, maybe even you, feel, well, trapped, stuck in a job they don't love, always waiting for that next paycheck? The answer is kind of shocking, and honestly, it could completely flip how you see your own financial life.
And it all starts right here. You see, Kiyosaki had these two completely opposite life philosophies drilled into him. His poor dad, who was actually a very educated guy, always said get a good, safe, secure job. But his rich dad, he said no, start your own company. One path keeps you on the left side of that cash flow quadrant, as an employee or self-employed, we are always trading your time for money. The other path, that takes you to the right side as a business owner or investor, where your systems and your money are the ones doing the heavy lifting for you.
Okay, so let's dive into part one, what Kiyosaki calls the Great Security Trap. And that's a perfect name for it, because it's like this invisible system that's built to make a cage feel like a really cozy home.
And here's the thing. That deep-seated desire for a safe, secure job, it's not really a choice we make. It's more like programming. From the time we're kids in school, we're taught the path to success is a steady paycheck. It's not about building our own thing, it's about fitting into someone else's.
And we all know the script, right? It goes something like this. You graduate school, you get that good job, and then, almost immediately, you start buying stuff on credit. A car, a new TV, whatever. Then maybe you get married, buy a house with a massive mortgage, and boom. Before you even realize what's happened, you're trapped. That job security isn't a nice to have anymore. It's an absolute necessity just to pay all the bills.
Yeah, that old saying really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? I owe my soul to the company store. You feel completely stuck. And Kiyosaki points out something terrifying. Most hardworking couples are less than 3 months away from going completely broke if they lose their jobs. They literally can't afford to quit because those bills just keep on coming.
And this is where the paradox kicks in. It's what he calls the success trap. You think, okay, I'll just work harder. I'll get that promotion, get a raise. But what actually happens? Well, you get bumped into a higher tax bracket. The bank calls and says, hey, you can afford a bigger house now. So you take on an even bigger mortgage. It's crazy. The more successful you seem, the tighter those financial chains get. So as if that trap wasn't bad enough, there are also these two giant systemic forces that are actively working against anyone on the left side of the quadrant. They're basically wealth killers. So what are they? Well, for most people, the two biggest expenses in their entire life are taxes and the interest they pay on debt. And here's the really devastating part. For employees and the self-employed, every single time you earn more money, these two wealth killers just take a bigger and bigger bite out of it.
Now, to really get your head around how differently the system works for the rich, listen to this story. A reporter once asked Robert Kiyosaki how much money he'd made in a year. His answer? About $1 million. So what's the next logical question? Okay, how much did you pay in taxes, right? I mean, for a regular employee, making $1 million would mean a massive tax bill, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what do you think he said?
Zero. Not a single penny. And the craziest part? It was 100% legal. He explained that the money came from capital gains in real estate, and he used a specific part of the tax code, a 131 exchange, to basically roll the profits from one investment property into another, legally deferring all the taxes on that profit.
See, the system isn't broken. It's actually designed to work exactly this way. The tax code is full of rewards and massive incentives for people in the business and investor quadrants, the B and I folks, because they're the ones creating jobs and providing housing. The government essentially rewards you for creating wealth, not just for earning a salary.
So, okay, how do you actually get out of this trap? Well, the very first step is to completely change how you think about the word security, because it turns out there are really 3 different levels.
First up is job security. This is what most people aim for, but it's incredibly fragile. Kiyosaki says it's like standing on one leg. Think about it. The second the economic winds shift, a recession hits, your company has layoffs, you're at risk of toppling right over because you've got absolutely nothing else holding you up.
The next level up is financial security. Now, this is a much stronger position. This is like standing on 2 strong legs. You might keep your day job as an employee, that's one leg, but you're also building a second leg over in the investor quadrant. Now you've got income coming from both sides, you've got stability, you've got balance.
And check out this real-world example of what that looks like. Kiyosaki talks about 2 friends of his who are city firefighters. I mean, talk about job security, right? But here's the thing. On their days off, they're professional investors. One of them now owns 45 rental properties that bring in $10,000 a month in passive income. The other one, he's built a $3 million stock portfolio. Think about how much more secure they are than their coworkers who are only standing on that one leg.
And that brings us to the top, the ultimate goal, financial freedom. This is where you step off the left side of the quadrant for good. You're operating purely as a business owner and an investor. Your systems and your money are working for you 24/7. You are, quite literally, free from having to work.
So what's the path? How do you actually make that leap from the left side to the right side?
All right, first, a really important warning. A lot of people try to escape the employee quadrant by jumping into the self-employed quadrant. You know, they want to be their own boss. But Kiyosaki says this is often a huge, fatal mistake. The S quadrant is actually the riskiest one of all. Something like 9 out of 10 of these businesses fail. And the people who do make it, they often just burn out from pure exhaustion because they are the entire system. If they stop working for even a second, the money stops. There's no leverage at all.
This right here, this is the mindset shift that absolutely has to happen. Your boss's job is not to make you rich. It's just not. Their job is to give you a paycheck. That's it. It is 100% your job to make yourself rich.
So what's the recommended path? It's a 2-step process. First, you focus on building a real business in the B quadrant, and that means creating systems that can run and make money without you having to be there every single day. That process alone teaches you so many invaluable real-world skills. And then, only after that business is spitting out consistent cash flow, you use that money to fund your investments in the I quadrant.
So why do it in that order? Well, think of a successful business as your financial engine. Investing is always going to be risky. Markets go up, markets go down. If you're trying to invest while you're still living paycheck to paycheck, one bad turn in the market could totally wipe you out. But a business, it gives you the capital, it gives you that buffer to invest smartly, to play offense, and to ride out those market cycles for the long haul.
And that really brings us to the one final critical question you have to ask yourself. Every single day when you go to work, every hour of energy you put in, are you building your wealth? Are you building your freedom? Or are you just building a paycheck and making someone else rich? That choice, as Kiyosaki says, is always yours.
Have you ever dreamed of being your own boss, but the whole idea of starting just feels, well, completely overwhelming? You are definitely not alone. So today, we're going to break it all down and show you 3 clear, actionable paths you can take to build your very own bridge to financial freedom.
You know, it's the classic dream, right? The idea of finally moving from being an employee or even self-employed over to being a true business owner. You want to stop trading your precious time for money and instead build a business where your systems are doing the work for you. But the question is, how in the world do you actually make that leap?
Because, let's be honest, from where you're standing now, it probably looks like you're on the edge of this massive, scary chasm. Over here is your current reality, and way, way over on the other side is true financial freedom. So, how do you get across?
Well, today, we're not just going to stare at the chasm, we're going to talk about the solution. And that solution, my friend, is a business system. Just think of it as your personal, super sturdy bridge to the other side. And we're about to explore exactly how you can either build one or find one that's already built for you.
Okay, first things first. Let's start with the end in mind. Before we even talk about how to cross the bridge, let's get perfectly clear on what the destination, real business ownership, actually looks like.
Now, this right here is the absolute key. It's the one thing that separates a true B quadrant business owner from everybody else. See, your goal isn't to create another job for yourself. No, your goal is to create an asset, a system that runs and makes money, whether you show up or not.
I mean, think about that for a second. Kiyosaki got this on such a deep level that even when he was literally homeless, his laser focus wasn't on just getting a paycheck to get by. It was on building the asset. That's the mindset. It's not about your next paycheck. It's about building the machine that generates all the paychecks.
So the goal is crystal clear, but trying to build this bridge from scratch, man, that is a treacherous path. Let's take a look at why it's so incredibly difficult, so you can sidestep some of the most common pitfalls.
Kiyosaki's own story is the perfect example of this. His company was a huge success on the surface, making tons of money, but the system underneath it all just couldn't handle the growth. And it proves a vital point. Success without a rock-solid, scalable system is really just an illusion waiting to crumble.
You gotta love this piece of advice from his rich dad. Failure isn't the end of the road. It's basically the tuition you pay to get a real-world business education. That's where the lessons that actually stick with you are learned. And this slide, right here, it perfectly illustrates the core problem. When you build a business from nothing, you're trying to juggle two massive, unpredictable variables at the exact same time. You've got the system on one hand and the people on the other. If your system is flawed, you sink. If your people aren't the right fit, you sink. Trying to get both perfect at the same time is unbelievably hard.
But here's the good news. You don't have to build your bridge from scratch if you don't want to. There are actually 3 proven paths you can choose from, and each one completely changes your main role and the key challenge you're going to face. Let's break them down.
All right, first up we have the most difficult path, but it also has the potential for the biggest rewards, building your very own business from the ground up. We're talking the path of Henry Ford or Steve Jobs. Now, if you're going to take this path, this distinction is absolutely crucial. You need a mentor, not just an advisor. You need someone in your corner who's actually built this bridge themselves and walked across it, not someone who just read the instruction manual and can tell you how it's supposed to work.
And believe me, the challenges are huge. It's not just about having a great idea or a product. You also have to build and perfect your legal systems, your accounting systems, your marketing systems. You get the idea. If just one of those plates you're spinning falls, the whole business can come crashing down. Okay, on to bridge number 2. This path is for anyone who wants a proven, step-by-step blueprint to follow: buying a franchise.
And here's the pure genius of a franchise. The system is basically a solved problem. It's already been built, tested, and proven to work. That immediately takes half the risk right off the table. It frees you up to pour all of your energy into the other half of the equation, building a fantastic team. But, and this is a really big but, here's the catch. Your job is not to be a creative genius. It's not to innovate or change things up. Your one and only job is to be the best possible employee of the system you just paid for. You have to follow the playbook to the letter.
And Kiyosaki's own family history gives us a perfect cautionary tale. His highly educated dad bought a world-famous ice cream franchise, and he failed miserably. Why? Because he was an S-quadrant guy who was convinced he knew better than the proven system. He fought the rules at every turn, and the business just collapsed.
And that brings us to our third and final bridge. This is by far the most accessible one, the one that has opened the door to business ownership for literally millions of people.
For a surprisingly small entry fee, we're talking often as little as $200, you can plug yourself into an existing, fully automated business system. All the really heavy lifting, like the inventory, the shipping, the accounting, it's all done for you.
But here's the secret. The real value isn't the product you're selling. Not at all. It's the real-world business education you get. The best of these companies teach you the most critical skills any entrepreneur can ever learn. Number 1, how to conquer your fear of rejection. And number 2, how to become a true leader who can inspire and guide a team.
All right, so there you have it. The 3 bridges. You can build one, you can buy one, or you can join one. The big question is, which path is the right one for you?
And this is the key takeaway for today. See, in the past, becoming a business owner felt like it was only for the super rich or the super brave. But today, the hardest part of the entire equation, building that proven system, can be taken right off your plate. So, if you're a natural-born innovator who loves risk, path 1 might be for you. If you're amazing at execution and building teams, path 2 is a fantastic option. And if you're really looking for personal growth with a low cost of entry, path 3 could be perfect. The question is no longer if you can cross the chasm, it's simply which bridge are you going to choose? Successfully crossing that bridge into the B quadrant is a massive, massive achievement. But really, it's only the first half of the journey to true financial freedom. What you do with the profits from your system, how you learn to become an investor, well, that's the next critical chapter in your story. And that is exactly what we're going to explore in our next explainer. What if I told you there's a map, a roadmap, really, to financial freedom? Well, today we're going to dive into Robert Kiyosaki's really powerful framework that shows you exactly where you stand on the path to wealth. Stick with me because by the end of this, you'll know precisely which of the 7 levels of investors you're on. And more importantly, what it takes to start climbing.
Let's kick things off with this really powerful idea from Kiyosaki's Rich Dad. He says, never be the person who buys the stock. Be the person who creates the stock. Now think about that. It's a huge shift in mindset, right? It's about stopping being just a consumer of investments and starting to become a creator. Honestly, this one core principle is what separates the truly wealthy from pretty much everyone else.
So the big question is, how do you actually get there? How do you make that leap? Look, it's not easy. It's a climb, for sure. But today, we're basically handing you the map. We're going to break down every single step of this journey so you can see exactly what it takes to reach that summit.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start at the very bottom with levels 0 to 2, the danger zone. Then, we'll hit level 3, what Kiyosaki calls the middle class trap. From there, it's all uphill. We'll look at level 4, the real path to wealth, and finally, we'll see what it's like at the very top with levels 5 and 6. As we go through this, I want you to be really honest with yourself and figure out exactly where you are right now.
All right, let's get into it. We're starting at the very bottom, in what Kiyosaki calls the Valley of Financial Peril. And it's called that for a reason. This is where debt is a constant weight on your shoulders, and any kind of real financial security feels, like a far-off dream. It's a tough place to be, and frankly, it's where most people start out.
So these first 3 levels are all about different kinds of financial struggle. We're going to start with level 0, the have-nots. These are the folks who at the end of the month have absolutely nothing left over to invest. Every single dollar that comes in goes right back out.
And get this isn't some tiny fringe group we're talking about. A staggering 50%, half of the entire adult population is living at level 0. They're just completely trapped in that cycle of spending everything they earn. Or sometimes even worse, going deeper into debt just to make ends meet.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because you see 2 very different mindsets. At level 1, you've got the borrowers. Their solution to any financial problem? More debt. They use credit cards like a lifeline, which means they are literally one flat tire, one medical emergency away from total ruin. Then you've got the complete opposite at level 2, the savers. These people are terrified of debt. They hoard cash in the bank, thinking that's the safest thing they can possibly do.
But here's the kicker. That feeling of security that savers have, it's a total illusion, a dangerous one. Look at this number. Since 1950, the US dollar has lost 90% of its purchasing power. 90%. Think about what that actually means. Your cash in the bank, it's like a block of ice sitting out on a hot day. It's just constantly, slowly melting away thanks to inflation. Trying to save your way to wealth is like trying to swim up a waterfall. You're working your tail off, but you're just not getting anywhere.
Okay, let's move up a bit to what Kiyosaki calls the crowded plateau. This is where most of the middle class lives. And it feels pretty safe, it feels comfortable, but that's what makes it a trap. This is where financial dreams go to die, because people get complacent. They stop climbing.
So, who lives on this plateau? These are the level 3 smart investors. And smart is in quotes for a reason. These people are well educated, they have good jobs, good incomes, and they know they should be investing. But, and this is a big but, they lack true financial literacy. They don't really get how money works, so they fall into one of 3 classic psychological traps that just keeps them stuck right where they are.
So, let's meet the 3 main characters you'll find hanging out on this plateau. First up, you've got the I can't be bothered investor. They're busy, so they just hand their money over to a professional and, hope for the best. Then there's the cynic. Oh, this person is an expert on telling you why every single investment is doomed to fail. But deep down, it's not intellect, it's fear. And finally, you have the gambler. They're always looking for hot tips and home runs, treating the market like it's a weekend trip to Vegas.
And the cynic and the gambler, they might seem like polar opposites, but they're really just 2 sides of the same losing coin. The cynic is driven by fear.
They're so afraid of losing that they wait until an investment is proven, which means they always buy high, and then they sell in a panic when things go down. The gambler, on the other hand, is all about greed. They're chasing shortcuts, throwing money at long shots, hoping to hit the jackpot. Fear and greed, both are a surefire way to lose in the long run.
But this is where the real journey starts. To build actual, lasting wealth, you have to leave that crowded, comfortable plateau behind and start the real climb. The next level is where you begin to build your financial fortress, brick by brick.
And that brings us to level 4, the long-term investor. Honestly, this is the foundation of all real wealth. These people have a clear, written-down long-term plan. They are actively involved in their own financial decisions. They don't just hand it off, and they keep things simple, investing consistently over time. This isn't about getting rich quick, it's about getting rich for sure.
And these are not the flashy, high-flying speculators you see in the movies. This is the exact type of person described in that famous book, The Millionaire Next Door. They're the everyday millionaires. They live below their means, they're disciplined, and they just consistently put their money into solid assets that grow over time. They are not chasing fads, they are building a legacy.
So, once you've mastered the habits of a level 4 investor, you've built a rock-solid foundation. And now you're ready to climb to the very top of the mountain. Let's go see what the view is like from the summit.
Right at the top, we find the 2 elite levels. Level 5 investors are the sophisticated ones. Because they have such a solid financial base, they can take on bigger, more calculated risks. They buy things wholesale, so to speak. When the economy gets bad and everyone else is panicking, they see opportunity. And then, at the absolute pinnacle, is level 6, the capitalists. These are the true masters of the game. They don't just buy investments, they create them. They're the ones building the businesses and putting together the deals that everyone else invests in. And they do it masterfully, using other people's money, OPM, and other people's time, OPT.
Pretty inspiring, right? To think about becoming a level 5 or 6 investor. It's a great goal to have. But before you get too carried away with that dream, there's one absolutely critical, non-negotiable rule you have to understand.
Listen closely to this. Anyone who wants to become a level 5 or 6 investor must first master the skills of a level 4 investor. You cannot skip this step. Let me say that again because it's that important. You cannot skip level 4. It is the bedrock that everything else is built on. If you try to make sophisticated, risky moves without that solid foundation, you're not a level 5 in training. You're just a level 3 gambler wearing a fancier suit, and I promise you, you're going to lose it all.
So as we wrap this up, I want you to take a hard, honest look in the mirror. Which level are you on right now? No sugarcoating it. And more importantly, what is the very next step you're going to take to start your climb? Because your financial future isn't about luck, and it's not about chance. It's about a series of choices. The real question is, what choice are you going to make today?